in Italian. We started this route by riding the tram from Passo Falzarego, which is 2,108 meters, to Refugio Laguzoi, which is 2,752 meters. This tram is much cheaper than the Palm Springs tram, and the views are spectacular. As we traveled to the top, we could see the paths on the steep hillsides below. Most of the paths were created in World War I by Austrian and Italian troops. The fighting was brutal, but the weather killed more soldiers than the fighting did. As we traveled up, we enjoyed spectacular views. This tram, unlike the Palm Springs tram, doesn't have any intermediate supports, so it's connected at the bottom and at the top, and otherwise you're hanging in free space the entire way. Not for people with agoraphobia. Soon we arrived at the top and we headed over to the summit of Laguzoi, which is 2,778 meters. There was a good-sized crowd at the Refugio and at the peak. We took some pictures in the area, trying not to be overwhelmed by the jagged rocky peaks all around us. In addition to the summit cross, there was a sculpture made from materials left over from the fighting, a sobering reminder of the past. Every direction we looked was just spectacular. As we headed away from the top on our route, the numbers of people quickly dwindled, and we found ourselves at a trail junction. The trail that we planned on taking seemed to disappear over the edge of the cliffs, and we wondered if we should continue. As we debated, another hiker came up and asked us about the route. After some discussion, we agreed it was the proper route and continued on our way. The route was steep with a great deal of exposure at times. When the route became steep, there were cables that we could use to assist in our descent, and at one spot a suspension bridge was across a gully. In other places we found timber zigzags aiding the way through a steep gully. Although this is not considered a true via ferrata, many hikers were wearing harnesses, lanyards, and helmets, and it is listed in via ferrata guides. As we neared the bottom part of the route, we had the opportunity to check out some of the tunnels and gun emplacements. One tunnel had a small wooden building that was used by the troops for living quarters. Even lower down were trenches and fighting positions, and in the distance there was a fort that was used by the Austrians and has been restored as a museum. Well worth visiting. Here you can see one of the entrances into the tunnels. And of course, debris. Here's one of the more exciting parts of the pathway, if you will. As you can see, Dorothy is carefully making her way along the pathway and definitely using the cables. Without the cables, I'm not so sure we would have been willing to do this. And in the distance off to the left, you can see the suspension bridge that we were going to be crossing as we continued on down the route. You can see another party ahead of us that have crossed the bridge. Dorothy's waiting for me to catch up because it's a kind of spicy section ahead. You definitely don't want to fall here. Definitely not a place to fall. And Dorothy's going across the suspension bridge. Many people consider this suspension bridge one of the highlights of this route. Well, now we're down off the actual rock faces, but you can see that the hillside is still quite steep, and they've used logs to reinforce the pathway here. Off in the distance, you can see the fort. And of course, more tunnels. And now you can see the trenches. And the pass in the bottom there. At this point, we're taking the opportunity to watch the cable cars. As you can see, one is going down, and it's soon about to pass the one that's going up. And they're just hanging out there in space. Really, really spectacular. There's the other one. And on up it goes. In addition to watching the cable cars at this point, although I don't know if you can make them out, there are some rock climbers on the cliffs particularly the gray cliff in the foreground. Um, and we were also taking advantage of watching them as well. Again, everything here was just spectacular. And it reached the top. And there we are looking up. That's where we were. And here you can see some barbed wire and some cans from the war. A drinking fountain. And here we are back down at the pass at the restaurant, market, and here we enjoyed some refreshments.